It's hard to forget this security cam video of two former Albuquerque cops who were cops when they made this rough arrest, an arrest that got them fired. Now, 3 years later, the two officers are finally going public, and they say everyone has interpreted what's on that video all wrong. You be the judge. Here's Kim Holland on special assignment.
Eastbound Lomas on the wrong side of the road.
It comes through the intersection at a high rate of speed, strikes the tree, and then comes across sideways and strikes the wall. Officer Wilbur chases him. He goes right through the hole here.
Both hands are under him as I tackle him.
I observed him reaching into his waistband. I 100% knew this guy was armed.
A chaotic scene. Officers John Doyle and Rob Woolover fighting to get a man in handcuffs in the parking garage of an Albuquerque hotel. They believe the white supremacist was armed and ready to kill a cop. Doyle is on the radio calling for backup during the struggle. But it was these kicks from Officer John Doyle that made the most noise.
Yes, it's a distraction technique.
Doyle lands 13 kicks to Nicholas Bloom's left side. The 20-year veteran lawman says he was just trying to kick Bloom's arm out from underneath Bloom's body to make sure he didn't have a weapon and to give his partner a chance to get the cuffs on Bloom. Doyle admits some of those kicks glanced off Bloom's arm and struck his head.
It's keeping him in the defense rather than in the offense, which would enable him to come out of his waistband with that weapon and possibly kill one of us.
The technique may have worked because as soon as Bloom gives up his left hand, it's over. He's in handcuffs in 16 seconds. Then the two officers, quote, celebrated with a chest bump. That's what the department said, and that became a huge part of the story.
It happened right about here.
But the officers say that's all wrong. Doyle says he was just checking on his exhausted partner. By then, Bloom was in handcuffs, but Doyle says he was still threatening.
Nicholas Bloom was yelling profanities. He was cursing and said that if he ever seen me, he would kill me.
Other officers took it from there and found knives on Bloom and a gun in the stolen truck Bloom was driving. Before the night was over, Doyle went to the hotel manager and asked for a copy of the security video.
Use of force doesn't look good. It never looks good, any kind of force.
But Doyle didn't think the arrest would be controversial. He says he wasn't trying to hide anything. Doyle and Woolover's commander, Murray Conrad, watched the video and ruled the force was justified. Conrad said then Deputy Chief Beth Pice signed off on it too. But 9 months later, the video hit the media. Chief Ray Schultz said it, quote, rose to a felony level and handed the case to the FBI. Doyle and Woolover were out of a job.
They were saying untruthfulness and excessive use of force.
How did that happen? Doyle and Woolover say top brass at APD used dirty, underhanded tactics, manipulating the investigation to get the results they wanted. Woolover says then Internal Affairs Sergeant Jason Peck even asked him to lie to save himself and bury his partner, Doyle, the one that did the kicking.
He told me that I needed to say where his hands were. And he motioned to me real big. He leaned back in his chair and he put them on top of his head and he nodded to me, as if to say, you need to say his hands are on his head. He told me it's the difference between me being a witness, me being a target.
And why did that happen?
We have to gather the necessary information.
The DOJ was already asking questions of APD at the time, and Doyle and Woolover believed Chief Schultz wanted to show the feds he wouldn't tolerate police brutality. The pair say they became sacrificial lambs.
It's despicable when you're used for a purpose like we were used.
The department sent out this warning in the days before Doyle and Woolover arrested Bloom that he should be considered an extreme danger.
I was briefed prior to this that the suspect would kill a cop and had threatened police officers.
The two officers felt like they had done the right thing after they had arrested Bloom. The then charges against Bloom were dropped as the controversy over the arrest swirled. Bloom went free. He filed suit against Doyle and Woolover and APD for excessive force earlier this year.
Another police brutality.
1 day later, he was arrested by the feds on gun charges. Now Doyle and Woolover are fighting to get their jobs back with APD.
I feel like I was born to be a police officer.
And there's an unexpected face in the officer's corner, civil rights attorney Shannon Kennedy, who's made a living suing cops for police brutality. Kennedy says everyone misinterpreted the video from the beginning, including her.
Understanding what actually had happened, I realized I had been wrong, and that I needed to be a part of righting that wrong by giving these officers due process.
In many ways, Doyle and Woolover have already been found guilty. They were fired by APD and disgraced in the court of public opinion. They say they were told to never talk to the media before. 2.5 years later, they're finally able to plead their case.
I think you got past here.
On special assignment, Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
The two ex-officers did provide us with documents that do back up some of their claims. The two were never charged with any crime. The city refused to comment on this case.